Hello, welcome back to the Game Dev Show here with Jason Story, Greg, Andrew, and Powell, and we're going to be talking about game development stuff. Lots of different topics. I think it looks like I put up a poll earlier, and game design was the topic that people were most interested in, which was kind of surprising. I was surprised that nobody was interested in jobs at all, but a lot of people interested in game design stuff, which I thought was a fun one to talk about. But there's a lot of other stuff that I wanted to talk about today as well. So welcome, everybody. Anyone want to say hello?
Hello.
All right, that's it. No more.
Hello.
Oh, so how's everybody's week been?
Pretty good. End of year at work. Lots of meetings.
End of the year.
Yes. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Most game companies I've been at, like, they close down around this week. Like, they're either closed this week or next week, and like through the end of the year. Some of them like do it, right after the beginning of December, even. So, are you guys somewhat similar there, or just working all the way through?
A lot of people take the last couple of weeks off, but yeah, I'm working through the end of this week, and then I'm off the rest of the year.
Oh, lucky. I've got some day job stuff next week, but I'm also hoping that it's going to be a quiet week, so I'll get stuff done that I want to get done.
Yeah, I mostly will be working this week, and I will check if I will work on something next week, maybe something different than normally.
Yeah, I'm just finishing up myself. I've I think I'm officially finished today, or maybe it's in the next couple of days. But either way, it's nice and relaxing. I have other projects to work on. Specifically, I think I mentioned already, my 8 terabyte internal drive died. So, a fun project is dealing with that. That being said, I use Backblaze, so I could literally order a replacement fully filled with all my old files sent to me. So it's not here yet, but it makes it a lot easier than having to try to resolve that problem any other way.
Yeah, that would certainly suck. So you use Backblaze, you said?
Yeah,
you just back up the whole drive constantly?
Yeah, pretty much. It basically their kind of value proposition is, unlike something like Google Drive or Dropbox or whatever, where they act as cloud storage. What Backblaze do is they say, you can't treat us like that. You can't just put files up there and leave them there. But if you have a drive locally, we will match it. So if you unplug your local drives, they'll stop keeping the backup. But if you have your own copy, so if you're like me and say, you know what, if I have 12 terabytes of stuff, then I have 12 terabytes of backup, which is awesome. Which it's a single flat fee, so it doesn't matter if I have 1 terabyte or 200. It's still the backup whatever I have locally. And yeah, so in this case, good point. I should drop a link, and I'll get the one that gives me an extra month if anyone wants to use it.
Oh yeah,
does that give us one extra month too if they sign up?
I think yes, they do as well. Yes.
Oh,
which is nice.
Good.
Yeah, legitimately, like I don't normally like going for the whole talking about products and shilling for them stuff, but this one is just like, it legitimately is saving me hassle. I think it's cheap for the value it gets. The only argument I would have against it is it does hit your hard drive pretty hard if you're actually, or your network, if you're actually backing up often. So you might want to use it on your like running drive,
Yeah, it seems cool. It looks like you're not the only one who likes it. It looks like we got some fans in the audience too. Shattered Souls even likes it. Yeah, that's cool. I've never seen that one before. I just use right now I got a little Synology NAS that is literally not even turned on. It's a terrible backup solution.
I do have a NAS that I was using, but I just found that hard drives can be finicky, and one of the ones died on me. And then also the problem with having a remote drive is you still have to deal with the cap on speed. But if you have just a local drive, it's as fast as your local drive, which is helpful. So yeah, I have been looking at there are some solid state NAS solutions that are getting popular these days. You can get like a 6 or 12 bay solid state NAS, and then you just fill it up over time. And that appeals to me as an idea, but I don't know if I could be bothered at the moment.
So I just dropped in your link in the chat so everybody can go check out Backblaze if you haven't seen it. I hadn't seen it, so I'm going to go check it out myself after we're done with the call.
One thing I would say as well is they've got 2 tiers. You can use the cheaper one is perfectly fine. The only real difference is the cheaper tier, they'll store your backup for 30 days. So that's good if you catch that something breaks and you want to kind of quickly get it back. The other one is a year storage. And I kind of like that one because every so often you'll be like, I've lost some files and I'm like, I forgot I deleted them. So that's actually a second layer of backup for me. Because if you're doing a lot of video editing stuff or you download a lot of stuff and you're kind of sorting through it and you delete as you go, you'll be like, oh, at some point I did have a valuable file, and then it's a little bit of an extra backup, which is nice. So.
Yeah. My backup is just Apple's Time Machine with a large hard drive here on my desk, and then another hard drive for my like cold storage backup where it's like I might need these files one day, but they're clogging up my laptop space. And so if there were a fire, let's hope there's not a fire, but if there were, I would lose everything. So I think I might be joining the Backblaze bandwagon.
Well, the thing that sold me personally is anybody who's ever done a legit backup. Like I've done the whole like clone drives, multiple backups. The real hassle isn't the backup per se. The hassle is when you have to restore things. You're like, cool, I now have to transfer back 4 to 8 terabytes of data over time, often off of hard drives and not solid state drives, and that's going to eat up all my time. I can't access the files. It's a real pain. The selling point for me is their offering is you can literally order your data back and they will ship it to you on a drive. And then you can plug the new drive back in and you're good to go. And then the other thing too is if you want, you can ship the drive back to them and you're good. And they'll just like they won't charge you for it, or you keep it and then you pay the fee for it, which to me is like, it may not have been the drive I would buy, but it's good enough to restore for time being, you know?
Yeah.
So you actually had a drive fail now, because I was wondering, like, have you had to use this before, or is this like the first time you're restoring?
This is my first time actually having to use it. I have downloaded some missing files before. I had a couple of documents that I was working on for some project, and I deleted them, and then like a few days later, I was like, oh, I cleared a folder, I could do it. So I went back and I pulled some old files back in the past, but I'd never actually done a full back. This is the first time it's been like, oh god, this is a real pain. So let's see what the process is like. Yeah, I clicked like 6 buttons and it said, okay, we'll make a backup and we'll let you know. The next day I got an email saying shipping your drive. And so in the next few days I'll have a replacement drive. So okay.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Interesting. I mean, I've had drives fail before, but I've never actually done much restoring. Usually like the only things that I keep around that are even on that NAS are like videos I've recorded that I might want to do something with, or like lots of pictures of kids. Like that's mostly just like pictures of the kids doing stuff and videos of them doing their performances and stuff. And then anything else that's important tends to be either online or it's in source control. There's probably some, I'm guessing that you have some other documents though that don't really fit into that. Like they're not part of a project that's in source control already, and they're not, like Google Docs and other types of stuff where I feel like I put a lot of stuff nowadays.
Well, mostly one of my favorite bits of software is something called Eagle. I've talked about it before. Now, one of the strengths and weaknesses of Eagle is they internally manage all of their files. So their argument is it's a file management solution. If stuff's on remote drives, you're kind of at the whims of the network speeds and all the other stuff. If you localize all your files, the system will work faster. It's a better, quicker thing. So the downside to it is that you must put all of your stuff in Eagle. You can't have files distributed in your own folder structure somewhere on your machine. So for someone like me with lots of files, I use that drive as my like bulk Eagle repositories. So I have the audio files thing. So a lot of it isn't even really precious data. It's just stuff that would be a royal pain in the ass to get back.
It's organized.
It's like one of them is every single audio file I've ever gotten from a Humble Bundle or a Steam sale or something. And I've bulk tagged and labeled and everything's there automatically done. And I can just open the drive in Eagle and it's all sorted. I've got the same for reference images. Every time I work on a project and we do research on images and stuff, I have images of UI, images of start menus, images of level design, tagged and labeled with notes of things I like or don't like, organized. Every time I've ever worked on a project and made a GIF or a video to show with clients, I take a video of it, I tag what we did on it, and I put it in the thing. So I find that useful next time I talk to somebody and they say, can you do X? And if I've done something like X before, I can grab a reference video and go like this because we've done that in the past. Or,
Yeah. Well, and you get like clarification too, right? You show them that you can, and they tell you exactly how they want it slightly different. Right.
Exactly.
Like what
Yeah,
parts you make purple?
so stuff like that. I have lots and lots of stuff. And then as a small side note, I like doing I don't share it for anyone else, I just do it for me. I like doing a daily vlog kind of thing to sort of keep track of what I'm working on. It's fun to like look back on and do a supercut at some point for yourself. And that's quite quick. So I literally have a button I press, I do a quick 5-minute monologue to the camera about what projects and stuff I'm working on, and it's a reminder, and then I just dump all the videos up there. But I record everything at high res and stuff, so that those files eat up a lot of space over time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Does Backblaze? I'm assuming that price is per drive. So if you have an internal SSD and like a NAS hanging off your network, you'd have to pay for both.
Yeah, it's per computer, so it's like whatever drives are connected on that computer is what it counts. I think it might not work with external drives. I could not external as in like network drives. I think it doesn't count your NAS, but I think it only counts your literal computer and the drives in it. I could be wrong. I haven't really tried that. That being said, I'm under the impression there are ways to make network drives look like local drives on a local machine if one was so inclined. But yeah, I personally, like I use the NAS for Media Center. And honestly, I don't really need to back up of Media Center as much because a lot of it is digital copies of media I have behind me. But at the same time, I can find again online if I really want to, right? A lot of it isn't super hard to find if you're talking about modern TV shows and movies and stuff.
Y'all ever use iDrive?
What's that?
It's a backup solution. And it real time backs up your drives and syncs them. But I keep getting notifications that the backup, like some of the files weren't backed up due to an unexpected error, and there's no more detail in that. So I haven't spent a lot of time to deep dive into it and figure out why.
You gotta love error messages like that.
Yeah. Oh, actually, that's another kind of small side note on hard drives. Here's a tip: if you don't mind the pain in the ass of the effort for it, so the limiting factor, like I said, per computer, is Backblaze will back up your stuff providing it's been plugged in. I think it's for longer than a day and a half, and it's sort of they can access it. So if you unplug your drive and it's been unplugged for longer than whatever your break period is, 30 days or your whatever, they stop looking after it. So you can unplug stuff and then plug it back in. So even though it says internal drives, a cheap way to add extra storage is you can buy M.2, you can get like a 2 or 4 terabyte M.2 drive for $100 or something. Put it into an external enclosure case for, $30, and then plug that in. And as long as you plug it in for more than a day every 40 days or 30 days, it'll count as a backup. So that's what I do as well. I'll have stuff that, again, to go back to like, if I have archive videos that are older than whatever, I don't want that to take up like the working space on my machine. I'll do that. Or I have emulator stuff too. I have a whole load of original Xbox games, and they're quite big. And so when I dumped all the ISOs for those, it's like it's loads of space that I'm not going to use them daily. And so I have them on an external disk that's I can plug in and get the backup if I want to, but I don't need to keep them locally. So that's a cheap way to get pretty good extra space.
I have to check it out. I mean, I never restore anything, but I'm curious to learn a little bit more about it and see. It looks kind of interesting. It stores everything for a set price. So
yeah, and to be honest, if you're not storing big files, you don't need it. Like a simpler solution for you is just Google Drive. Like what a lot of people don't realize is Google Drive has gotten really good recently. Like it used to be garbage. Legitimately, I used to hate using it because it had this horrible app you had to use, and you had to like sync certain folders, and it was a real pain in the ass, and it just wasn't very intuitive. And their web client is still absolutely garbage for what it's supposed to be. It's so confusing, unnecessary for something that's a representative file system. But what's really cool is they now have a thing where you download the app and it makes a virtual drive. And that virtual drive is just a fake drive you can click, drag files onto, drag files off of, and it's your Google Drive. So if you're using it to store documents and things, you can just do that. Like that's perfectly fine.
yeah, that makes sense. And it's relatively free. Oh yeah, I just checked out iDrive too while we were talking, Greg. It looks kind of interesting too. So there was a question in chat, and maybe we could take it from Shadowed Souls, who I think this might be an interesting one. So I got a question for the collective. Recently, I pitched a small business on a game, and I expected the bait to sink to the bottom of the pond, but they took the bait, put glitter on it, and sent it back to the surface. Their request is fairly simple. They intend to provide the art. My issue is that any price I come up with feels like a massive gouge, as they'll be providing the visuals and are already a small one-man team. Okay. Interesting. So let's see. How often, if ever, do you run into these ethical dilemmas like this? So this is a good one. So you got a project, got the approval, but trying to come up with pricing that makes sense for both parties. Anybody have thoughts?
I mean, part of this is the other party here is not playing that game, right? The other party is not doing their, or at least what Shadow Soul Studios feels they should be doing to get a more reasonable price. That the price seems to be unreasonable from his perspective or their perspective, but perhaps the company doesn't realize that it's an unreasonable. Maybe they're inexperienced in this market or something.
I don't know. I got the sense that he was just worried about overcharging, trying to calculate out the price.
I mean, if somebody wanted to pay me $1 million for my entire library of assets for use in their project, they could do that. I would accept that. If that person was like, we've got a budget of $1,100,000, we're gonna spend $1 million of it on your stuff, yeah, I'd be in a.
I think this is closer to them saying, "Hey, I'd like to buy the Barbarian. How much do you want?" And you're trying to come up with a number that makes sense to you and makes sense to them, knowing that they're not going to make much money off the Barbarian.
I don't know. This is tough because are they savvy? Is that we're assuming that they're not savvy, right? If they're a savvy business person, then maybe they have something up their sleeve, and maybe from their perspective, they're like, "No, this is going to make us a lot of money. We gotta get this. Let's give them an offer they can't refuse." You know, that could be going on, I suppose. But if they're not savvy, if they're just like, he said it was a small business, making a game for a small business. I don't know what kind of business. Maybe it's a local mom and pop.
It sounded like it was a one-person shop. Yeah, that's going to be doing the art. I have some thoughts, but I'm curious. Story, you got?
Oh yeah,
you do a lot of this, right?
This has been one of the biggest issues I've had in my entire career, because I came from working classic 9-to-5 business stuff, and I would do contracting on the side. And when I started, I was doing game contracting in VR things. And so the first internal quandary is you're going, yeah, but this is fun for me. How much do I charge for this when it's better than my work stuff? So clearly it's not worth as much that way. And you know, you start trying to psych yourself out over how much to charge. And oftentimes, especially in games, you tend to be working, actually, especially in contracting, if I'm being honest, a lot of the people in your vicinity you work for are not familiar with your domain. And so they have no idea what they're asking for or how much it costs or that kind of thing. And so they always look to you and say, how much is this? Like that's usually the case. I go back to when I was a kid fixing computers, and you know, if you were to charge real prices, you'd be charging 150 or 200 for your time, but you'd have somebody like old granny whose computer you fix, like slip you 15, feeling very generous. They just gave you a lot of money, and you're going, you know, that's comically cheap. That is like, you're wasting my time at that point. It's mine, whatever. So the short answer is, how do you gauge your worth to that time, to their value? And I struggled with this for a long time, and I realized the problem that I had that I was trying to fix is you're trying to quantify it from the perspective of how much does it cost me to do, and that's not the right way to do it. If you quantify it by how much it costs you, you're only going to measure by your efficiency, and the better you get at your job, the more efficient you get, and so by your own reasoning, you'll charge less the better you do, which is insane, right? That's not what people are paying for. What people are paying for is value. And so I was looking at the Future channel as one of the ones that's a good example, because even more esoteric than ours is art. If you're a logo designer, or if you're a company brand manager and you're trying to design a rebranding for a company, what do you charge for that? How much is a logo worth, right? That's even more esoteric to try to figure out. And the short answer is, how much value are you providing? And a lot of people don't want to pay a high price because from them it's like, well, I'm paying for a doodle, I'm paying for a little circle or a drawing or whatever. It's like, well, you're not. If it was only a doodle, you wouldn't be coming to me. You would doodle yourself. You're coming to me for a reason. What is the reason? You think I add value, and so let's establish the value. Do you think this new branding and this new initiative will earn you more money? How much more money? What percentage of that are you earning? And so if this concept or idea brought in an extra 100,000, and I took 1,000 of that, is that 99,000 that bad? And so you have to kind of measure that perspective. So that's one. One is I now, when I talk to somebody and they want to do something, I say, why? Well, what do you think this gets you? What is the point of this process? Do you think it'll bring in more customers? Do you think it'll market things better? Do you think it'll be more fun? So you just figure out what their goal is. And if they think it brings in a lot of public positive attention or something, that's fine. That's whatever their value is to it. And so you evaluate off that front. You go, well, how much value is that for them? And then the second one is if you don't think you're going to bring value, personally, I don't take the project, or I will wait based on how much I think they have. So that's the moral side of it. But I will say on the broader aspect, you're going to be shafted more often than you're not. That's just a fact. More often than not, you're not going to be paid what you think you're worth. So the idea is, as long as you don't think you're being egregious, the fact of the matter is they're paying for your entire history and what you're doing. In my case, the way I look at it, when people hire me, they're hiring me because they don't know how to do it. If I knew how to do it, I would do it myself, right? And so a lot of people hire to solve a problem they don't have. So they're not just paying for the physical time. They're paying for we don't want to deal with the 5 million intricacies of how to do this, how should we set this up, whatever else. And so I will handle all the complexities of the issue, and they basically get to, in their mind, this much money equals problem solved. And sometimes that's worth a lot more than the cost of the actual work. It is, I don't have to think about this again. Let's just go and do this and have it done, and abracadabra, we get something for it. And so from their perspective, it's percentage of our money equals magic thing happens. And that's perfectly fine. So yeah, I don't really see that issue anymore. I'm more looking at it from the perspective of how much do I need to feel like nobody's getting screwed personally, and also that, the company, the client is happy. And again, it usually comes down to value. Like, how much value do they think they're getting? Because to them, literally, maybe just having a game is that they're ecstatic, right? Maybe that's like a thing they've always wanted. And to them, like the value proposition on that's far higher than you're giving it credit for. But again, you'd have to talk to them.
Yeah, and it sounds like they're not making like money off it. It's going to be just a freebie that they're including in something that they already have. So my guess is that value is relatively low. And before I forget, I just wanted to share a little advice that I got when I started contracting. Actually, I think I picked it up from one of the .NET Rock shows on coming up with pricing. And what I found, stole from this show and worked really well, was that if you're not sure where it should be and exactly what the scope of it should be, coming up with just 3 different options that they can choose from, like a very low price.
Yeah, we do the same thing. We do bronze, silver, gold, and it's more perspective of, this isn't about which is better. It's about which do you want. Do you want to put in X, Y, or Z? It's up to you how much investment is worth to you effectively. So you're giving them a good vertical slice of the different kind of ways we could approach the problem.
Yes. So like a really low priced one that's like, just the basics, like showing them like what they can do for what I think is definitely within their budget. And then another one that's, based on what it's going to take. And then the higher end one is usually quite a bit higher, like 5 to 10 times higher than the low end one, a pretty large scale. That's drastically bigger. That's like the full on giant version of the project. And most of the time what I found is people pick the middle one. they almost always go for the middle one. But if the middle one is way outside their budget, then you still have that low priced option that is hopefully relatively easy and quick for you, that you've budgeted, that, this is something I can knock out for $1,000 and feel good about, or whatever that low end price is. I feel like doing that helps a lot, and it makes it easier to negotiate on things too, because people say like, hey, I like all of this, but could we add in that one thing from the one above or whatever? How much would it be to do that? And you kind of figure out the exact thing instead of overbuilding something that they don't actually want or need.
I think it bears mentioning that people also tend to undervalue their own time and expertise, etc. There are, I guess this is very similar to enterprise software, where there's enterprise software that does one thing. It's okay, but their companies are paying thousands and thousands a year per seat for that one thing because the company needs it. And a lot of regular folks might, look at it and be like, oh, that barely does anything. It's such a simple thing. Like, it's not even well done. But the application, whatever application, has a great sales team that's going out, finding these leads, getting these people signed up. And that's the business. That's you make money on the salespeople. So for a lot of small independent people, we might look at it in Shadowed Soul Studios. Maybe you're doing this. You might be undervaluing your own time and thinking, well, I know it doesn't take me that much. It's pretty easy. They're supplying the hard stuff that usually I would spend a lot of my time on, forgetting that they're not paying for your time. They're paying for the product that they're going to get. And they have an idea in their head of what that value is. And oftentimes there's a difference there. So maybe they actually do have a value. And even if they're giving it away for free, somebody might go to a game studio and say, hey, why would you give away that game for free? 99% of the people will never even buy those in-app purchases, right? But then you realize, 99% won't, but there's going to be 30 million people playing every day. Okay, now there's money to be. So anyways, I think we all undervalue our own stuff. So while it's good to be ethical, and I appreciate that as a human, and I will also pay people more or charge people less when I feel like, okay, no, they got screwed a little bit, because I don't like being screwed. But we have to also remember that we're selling value rather than, thank you, Magical Music TV, rather than hours. And the reality is, if I could spend 5 minutes in order to provide, $10,000 of value to a company, then I should be paid $1,000 for every 5 minutes.
Well, the other one too is just I've struggled with this one for a long time. I legitimately, I probably earned slightly over graduate rates for about 5 years of my career, where I could have been charging 50% more in each one of those cases, because to me I was like, I'm getting the luxury of moving from boring enterprise work to game, so surely it wouldn't be worth that much or whatever. But I now really love the story of the idea of, if you're, you've got a leaky faucet and you hire someone to have a look at it, and they look at it and they just stare at it for a few minutes, and then they, lift the top and put a washer on it and close it. It's like, there you go. It's like, cool. How much is that? Well, it's like 150 and 50 cents. It's like, okay, well, why that much? Well, 150 was for all of my years of learning it, research, to look at it, and the long story short, to not waste your time or mine and solve your problem. 50 cents is for the washer. So a lot of people look at it as they only charge for the thing they do. They don't charge for the fact that they're coming in to solve a problem. And as someone who's also trained juniors, the amount of times where I undervalued my stuff, because I didn't realize that. I would look at it, I would be working on a problem, and I would do it, it'd be done, and it'd take a few days or something, and they'd be like, oh, it's done already? It's like, yeah, we've had people working on that for a month or something. I'm like, oh. It didn't occur to me, because when you first start, you build it from scratch. When you're older, you use Weimann or something, you do 3 clicks, you start with a template project, you go to Wrap Bootstrap, you download the template, and within a couple of days you've got an entire front-end admin dashboard application built on REST with all the stuff. And it's like, I did 3 clicks. It's not very impressive, the work I did, but I know where that stuff is. I know how to use it. I know how to integrate it. I know how to solve the problem. And it's like, oh, okay. So you have to look at the output value, not that perspective of how long it takes you.
Yeah.
It's like measuring code quality and number of lines of code.
And there's value
When I
in
hire
working
people-
smarter instead of harder.
Yeah. When I hire people for any of the art stuff, that, because I don't do my own art, as many of you know, I hire people for that, and I value more, certainly the quality has to match. That's a no-brainer, that you have to get that. But lots of people can get there. I'd rather pay more for somebody who will get there without going back and forth with me. If I have to receive files, make a 10-minute video that shows what I'm talking about, send that back, wait another week, that back and forth takes way more of my money, from time is money type of thing, than the cost of the product. So I'd rather pay more to have something that I know is going to be good without back and forth, rather than paying less and just having to deal with that slog of, hoping it works, and no, now this is wrong, now this is wrong, nope. And I've done this with like animations, having to go through animations and be like, listen, stand up in your room and pretend you're swinging a sword. How does your body move? And essentially I'm now an animator how to make more physically realistic animations. And I'm like, I'd rather pay double for somebody who just knows this,
Yeah.
So that's the value of experience.
And again, it's not even about speed either. The other part of it too, which if I was to say if there's any value proposition that I would say I bring specifically, that I'm, the fact that I think that we've only lost like 3 customers in X whatever 10 years of doing this. Almost everyone's returned back to us from our work is usually because one of the hardest things to get is someone who understands what you're going for. And one of the examples that it's kind of a joke, but I do something I see a lot is I use the example of using a fork to eat soup, right? You could be trying to use a fork to eat soup, and you can go to a contractor and say, I need to solve this problem. We need a bigger fork. And a bad contractor will say, sure thing. I'll make you the biggest fork you could ever use. And they'll do exactly what they're told because
put some extra prongs on it.
Yeah, right. Because they look at the client's problem and they will solve what the client says the problem is. Somebody who actually cares, who knows what their work is like, hang on a second. What are you trying to do? Eat soup. Well, did you hear about spoons? Right? Let's reevaluate the problem and actually solve what you're going for. And I find that while I'm not really an expert in particular things, I have a good enough understanding of a wide area of stuff, from the business side of it to the marketing to the UI design to the actual programming to the whatever. I'm pretty good at finding the holistic sort of, okay, where should you spend your time? How should you be doing things? And oftentimes people like working with me because it's that thing of like, let's figure out how to solve the problem in a way that both of us benefit from. And that to them is worth extra for the idea that you've got somebody who's actually on board with your concepts,
Yeah. I will say one of my best, maybe the best animations I've ever gotten was from this one guy who also said one day to me, hey, did you know that you could use blend shapes to outside of animations? I was like, tell me more. And from that moment on, I had mesh morphing via blend shapes. So without this one guy revealing this and really basically understanding what I was doing, he understood that I wasn't just needing animations. Yes, I needed animations. They were physically realistic. He could do that. But he also said, did you know your business would be valued from this one little additional piece of information? And he's spot on. So, I miss that guy. He went on to bigger and better things. Luckily, he used my animations in his portfolio, got a big job, and now he's probably like head of a studio. So, what can you do?
On a kind of related topic, I've gotten approached twice now for Highland Panic. One was some company called World Gaming Community, and they say they buy games for their portfolio, and they said they pay between $5,000 and $800,000 for games. And I did a little digging and research. I looked at their webpage and stuff. There's no outright evidence that they're a scam, but it also seems to indicate their website gets no traffic, like virtually no traffic. And the other person that approached me offered to publish Highland Panic for the Nintendo Switch, and they said they'll be responsible for doing the porting and everything. But I looked into them. They're called Midnight.
Oil.
No. Let's see if I can find that. But anyway, it was Midnight.works. And apparently there's a lot of stuff out there about them producing a lot of shovelware and cases where their advertising doesn't even remotely reflect the game, like totally BS screenshots or trailers and stuff that don't at all reflect the actual game. So they've got a bad reputation. So even if they would legitimately port my game to the Switch, I'm not sure I'd want to associate my brand with them. So that's another consideration is when dealing with people, do you think about how it's going to affect your brand?
Yeah, I think in capitalism, right? So there's always going to be people who find that one thing. And if you can, pay $5,000 for some game that somebody's already made, put it out there, and you're going to make $8,000 back, so $3,000 profit. Okay, can I do that every single day? If I can do that once or twice a day, let's just keep doing that, and I'll make whatever per day. But it's seems unethical, or at least like not unethical. Perhaps what's the word when you're purposely providing a cheap product and you know it's kind of crap, but you're just shilling it anyways? I mean, I guess it's unethical to me, but there might be a better word for it.
Oh, Jason,
I only heard part of what you said because I stepped away to suddenly get sick. I have no idea why. But yeah, I just be careful on those because I get a lot of scam emails. People offering to buy the YouTube channel and all kinds of other stuff. Their whole goal is to get you to click a fucking PDF so they can install a virus. Like they will send it around, and yeah, just whenever you get them, just avoid the PDFs. Don't click on anything. The links,
it's also gotten a lot worse too, because it used to be easy to tell because they were low effort shovel sort of spam mail.
Yeah.
Where it's like, we love your channel and your latest video on, and it's like it was very easy to tell.
It'd be like
these days it's harder because with AI you can legitimately like make a realistic human sounding email. Although, fun fact for spammers and sort of people doing those sorts of things, one thing that I always found funny is, so there's two categories of those scams. There's the ones where they just want you to click, in which case they actually want high value channels and things. Like again, Linus Tech Tips and stuff got their stuff stolen because somebody clicked a single PDF. Like that happens. For those ones, they want to sound as legit as possible. But for more of the sort of bargain basement scams, the classic like bulk you out of money by coming up with some silly excuse, the running joke is they all have terrible grammar and they don't make sense logically. And I used to always wonder, why do you have such, like, there are ways to make this better if this is worth a lot of money to you. But after doing some research into it, I learned that that's actually a feature, not a bug, because the kind of people who are completely fine with constant misspellings and, you know, incorrect grammar on something that talks about free money is exactly who you want if you're trying to deal with those kinds of scenarios. You don't want people who are going to, you know, clue into the scam halfway through. So it's actually interesting.
It and look at it.
So the market's different. So it's just fun to think that they're two different categories of scams. So there's going to be the ones which are well framed and they tend to be for the more professional stuff, and then there's the ones which are actively meant to look stupid on purpose.
Yeah, it's definitely crazy. Yeah, it's definitely some crazy stuff out there. Lots and lots of scams. One thing that's not a scam is the 23 for 23 bundle. All right, that's sitting right there, ready to go. Yeah, I actually grabbed that one. It's pretty good stuff. I don't know what the original price was. I put in a lot, but lots of stuff for $23. I just linked it and go check it out. Want to find something that's not a scam.
It's fair enough.
Yeah.
Pal, I've been meaning to ask you, what's this ice world that I keep seeing behind you?
This is an old asset that we have developed.
I haven't seen that one. You have too many assets.
Yeah, we have some. I think it's more appropriate than this one in current weather outside.
Yeah. No, it definitely blends better with the snow in the winter. So it's cool. Yeah. I honestly, I don't think I've ever seen that one though. You have a shitload of environments, and I might even have
that one. Yeah, I was gonna say I'm pretty sure I actually have that one.
It was cool. It was in many bundles. I think the hardest thing to do on it was the ice, because the ice has several layers and several types, so it's cool asset.
Yeah, it definitely looks neat. I like it. Oh, and oh, that's not it. Oh, that was a link to the Nature Manufacturer stuff. I just dropped it in chat. It says Black Friday. That's a lie. That's my old link. Go check it out. Go find that ice asset.
But there's a sale coming, on Unity, the Unity New Year sale. Coming in next few days. Yeah, there's a big banner on the website. So Nature Manufacturers will be on the sale there.
Oh, that would be great. Check that out. I didn't realize that was coming. I get distracted with all the stuff going on. Global warming has affected sales. Cool. So there were a couple other things I wanted to talk about. Greg, you'd mentioned earlier wanting to hear about my giant disaster for the last week.
Well, your rabbit trail.
Yeah. So it was a trail down the wrong path for sure. And just to clarify, I thought this was it's something that's happened to me multiple times in the past. I guess like I can think back to quite a few times specifically where I started working on a problem and then found a solution that I thought was the one that I wanted to go with, and then kept building on it and kept building on it and kept building on it until I realized that I'd solved the completely wrong problem. Like in this case, I was working on a lesson for the multiplayer course on host migration and had stripped away all of the built-in scene management stuff to solve the simple solution thing of I wanted my cars to stay on the screen when the player's disconnected. Unfortunately, I didn't realize when I'd made that decision to do it. It was one of these lessons that was kind of an impromptu one somebody asked about, and it's like, oh, why not? That should be something I can knock out in a day and make a good, interesting thing. Unfortunately, at the time, I didn't realize just how much they had integrated the scene management system in with netcode for game objects, and how different of a how many things we're going to have to change to make that possible. So literally, I probably spent 40 to 50 hours working on this lesson, getting deeper and deeper. And every day I was like, this still isn't quite right. This is not good. I don't like it. And then at the end of it, like Tuesday, I was like, this is wrong. I need to go back to source control, revert 1 week, and then start over. Did that, and it took like 4 hours. I was like, okay, nope. Just need a fresh start, get out of this fucking rabbit hole of going deeper and deeper into, well, just one more little change here, one more little change here, all to solve a problem that was super simple to solve. Like, I mean, solving host migration isn't that complicated. You serialize off the player's data and pick a new host, right? So it ended up being, for me, or just a big reminder to reevaluate, like in the morning, am I doing the right thing? Or when things are not working out well, like just remember to double check that actually working on the right problem. I've done this many times where I spent like days or a week working on the wrong thing, usually on an actual game, and then I'm like, wait a minute, I don't want to use any of this. Like there's a much easier way to do this, or maybe that's just not the right problem that I'm trying to solve, or like you get in and you're like, oh, well, I could optimize that real quick. Let me optimize that while I'm here, and then end up, So, I don't know if you guys ever do that, but it happens to me more than I like to admit.
For me, it's system design. The amount of times I sit down to solve a problem, and then the problem requires a system, and then I'm like, cool, I guess I'm building this system for 3 weeks because it's really fun to build a good system. And then I have to stop and go, I need like 5 lines of this quote unquote system. I don't need a system right now. I mean, it inevitably will become a system, but now I should like make a script, put 4 lines in it, and move on. We'll get on to the other stuff. And so, yeah, sometimes that you get caught in that rabbit hole.
Yeah, it certainly happens to me on occasion. Definitely not immune to it.
I told you I worked on a tutorial, recorded the whole thing, and then realized I was just on my camera view the whole time and wasn't sharing my screen.
And I think I replied in there about the recording muted videos because I've done it so many times. I actually did it earlier this week. I was recording in the first like 5 minutes. I was like, oh no, I never unmuted my mic.
I would say, so to go back to the brief talk about storage and lots of stuff, here's a good example of why I do that. Because it's very easy. There's like 10 things that can go wrong recording a video. Again, record desktop versus camera. You could like try to be switching back and forth with OBS and then cut off half the screen. You could not record the audio. You could not record system sounds, etc., etc. So what I do, because I like the freedom in the edit to like not have to worry about those things, I use a Beacon Mix Create, which gives me like a bunch of virtual devices. I then use OBS, and I think I've mentioned before, I set my canvas resolution to double, and I literally record full screen 4K face cam full screen 4K desktop, and I switch all of the audio to be on different audio layers. So kind of like different subtitle tracks when you're doing or audio tracks on a video file. And so when I record, I just check, are the bars bouncing up and down on the beacon? And then when I press the button, in the edit, I have the full desktop, the full face cam, every single audio track. If sounds play over other sounds, I can individually mute the browser versus the desktop versus my mic versus someone else I'm talking to. And so my short answer is, if you're willing to pay the extra cost of storage, so in that case, I think a 40-minute recording cost like 180 gig, so not small. But if you do that, you can then have all of the information. Everything possible could have been captured. And then you can run, I've got a bunch of bash scripts and PowerShell scripts that'll cut that, strip it, split it into different videos, compress the things that need to be compressed, strip the unnecessary ones, and good to go. So yeah, that's another reason for lots of storage. You can mitigate some of these problems by just capturing more capture time.
So are you saying that you record your face and your desktop at the same time on different video tracks?
Yeah, well, so the trick is, there's a few video recorders that'll record desktop and your screen, but most of them kind of suck. There's a few that are okay, like the Movavi video recorder is pretty good. It'll record both separately, but it's given me issues in the past. The best way to get full high resolution face cam and video with the least amount of hassle is OBS, and you just set your canvas resolution to
I
double.
see what you're saying.
You literally make it extra
and so you just
wide.
have two regions in your scene,
And you
one's
drag
video
both along.
camera-
Exactly.
Yeah.
They live side by side in one recording. And so you end up getting a file that's whatever, 7-8 by thing. And I have a script I wrote which will automatically read that, use FFmpeg to cut it into two videos, use an app called Socks that will listen to the audio layers, strip out any audio layers where the amplitude has been too low. And so, long story short, I press a button, I wait 10 minutes, and then I end up with two separate MP4 videos with audio tracks done. So again, it's extra work, and it does require a bit of automation. But you do it, and like I said, you get perfect 4K, both, no questions, you know.
One problem I've run into using OBS to split my audio to different tracks is if I'm live streaming, like when I live streamed our mastermind group, my desktop audio wasn't going out over the stream because YouTube doesn't support separate audio tracks. So I have to remember to go in there and check those boxes to send them both to the first track, or it doesn't work.
Which is another good example. If you use something like a Beacon Mix Create or Go XLR or any of those, they have a stream mix audio source, and you can use your mix router to say that this output is the combined of all of these, and then you just always set it to that one, and it'll be the perfect sort of mix down for you. I recommend the Beacon Mix Create. I think the Go XLR is effectively, I think it's they don't make it anymore.
It's a hardware device.
Yeah. The Beacon in particular is really good because it's literally like looking at my desk right now. I've got a bunch of sliders. I can individually see my mic, your mics, my system sounds, and I can individually like control the volume or mute or whatever, you know.
Yeah, I have a much simpler solution that I use, which is this Camtasia that just records it, records the streams, and then it basically does. It sounds like a lot of the stuff that you're doing, probably just not as quickly. It's nice, simple little tool though. It lets me do the recording. My problem tends to be that I'll leave my camera off or my mic physically muted. like I use the Wave XLR one. I think one of you turned me on to that thing, and it's great, but I always just forget to actually unmute it. So I'll be recording and muted, and here I've fucked up my camera.
So I did actually use Camtasia because on your recommendation a while back. Turns out I'd bought a license when I was early on and I'd forgotten about it. And so I decided to catch the latest one of it. And so literally how it works, because I've looked into this myself, is if you record with Camtasia's recorder, it will create its own recording file, which is what you're describing. And if you load it up in Camtasia, it'll magically have separate video and audio track. But if you actually take that file and open it in 7-zip, it is literally a folder with WAV file and 2 videos. It's like it's a zip file.
Yeah, that's what I kind of expected. Yeah.
And it works fine. Like I
Right.
don't hate it as a recording, but I found that it has issues sometimes capturing. I had my mouse jitter issues sometimes when I was capturing stuff, and the recorder is just pants slow. Like the amount of times I've had issues where it would like crash or do different things, and it's just. I tried using it, but it just to annoy me. And I used the recorder for a long time. I think the reason I switched was. I think there was like a limit on either the audio tracks. You can't do the audio track stuff I was talking about. You can do the separate, like you can record two. You can record your mic and the desktop, but the way I set it up, I can record like browser versus desktop versus game versus whatever, and it's much easier for me that way.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense if you're gonna use those. So what I found is that I almost never have desktop sound on, though. I always just leave it off because it's normally just Skype and Discord notifications. Like, there's usually no audio that I want to play. But yeah, it's interesting. They've updated it too to do some automatic layout stuff and green screening too in the recorder. There's just an option that when it finishes, it'll give you a little thing to make some slightly better layouts than I would make on my own. Anyway.
Yeah, it is worth noting. Like the software and tooling doesn't really matter, right? It's the same thing. It's just there's so many guides and stuff online. The general takeaway, no matter what it is you're doing, is get a good mic. Everything else is secondary. Literally everything else is secondary.
The best tools are the ones you use.
Yeah.
A good microphone is the only required one. Not sitting there talking into something terrible, yelling at the camera into your Logitech webcam.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's a similar concept with the hiring someone to just do it right the first time and not have a lot of back and forth. You just need to invest in something in quality that's just going to work every time. Doesn't need a lot of finagling, and your life will be so much easier. Like our chairs. We've talked about this before. Our chairs. Invest in a good chair.
Oh.
You only get one back, and you're sitting in your chair most of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, the number of times I've seen people sitting in like a really uncomfortable like kitchen table chair, like the little wooden ones. And
yeah,
I don't know how you sit there for 8 hours a day writing code. Like it's crazy. I was just telling you earlier, this chair just came a couple of days ago, way better on my back already, and I can feel the difference. And that's versus using a chair that I also already liked that was pretty damn good. So using a terrible chair is a bad idea. Good tools. Very important.
Yeah.
And also, there's just a small rant on my part. It drives me insane. So many people use tools every day and have complaints about those tools every day and don't check the checkbox available options on those tools that they use every day. just like just the amount of stuff. Like, I'm not saying everyone has to go full URI and read every line of documentation ever written by a company, but what you can do
You're supposed to eat the documentation.
yeah, absorb its power. But what you can do is just like what I do is I'll assess the problems I have. If I'm sitting there going, ugh, I hate that I had to scroll and click 7 folders of doing stuff. It's like, is there an easier way to do this? And you do a search and whatever. Like small things, like I used to do a lot of stuff with like JSON normalization, or the other one we talked about the last day was I used to use Postman for checking my API calls. Real pain in the ass, and the software has gotten bloated and garbage. And it's like, I need a way to do this. It's just API calls. It should be easier. And then I found out there's something called Thunder Client. So it's a single plugin for VS Code, and now it's like a tab in VS Code. Done. Like it's so whenever there's a problem, just do a Google search and see if there's a way to solve it.
Yep, just like you would if you were playing a video game and got stuck, right? Just search for the answer instead of fighting with it and complaining about it. Cool. Well, you guys got any other topics, things you want to discuss this week?
If anyone has a good tip on pizza dough, I'm trying to become great at making pizza at home, and I'm not great at it yet because I don't know how to bake. So make some good pizza dough recipes.
You got to throw it.
Yeah.
And spin
My
it.
first pizza dough recipe was from this wonderful YouTube show called Babish or whatever. And he was like, oh, now do the thing. And I'm like, great. Mine would look like a donut. There was a giant hole in the middle. And I was like, okay, this didn't work out. So.
Well, to be fair, that is a skill. My
Yeah.
first job was at a pizza place, flipping pizza dough. And it definitely took practice to get good at it.
Yeah, well, the first step is to get good at actually making the dough And the dough
Yeah,
ball.
get consistency right. Yeah, that's
Yeah. So, but that has nothing to do with coding and making games. I mean, I guess you could
I also worked at a pizza place for a little while, but the dough came in a mix, and we mixed it up with some water.
Yeah, ours was homemade. Well, I mean, the owner made it. Funny story. He had that it was a big combination thing. It had like a gigantic mixing bowl with the hook, that mixed the dough. But you also could use it to like slice vegetables and stuff. There's another attachment. And so there were two speeds. There was like a really high speed for doing like the slicing of onions and things. And he had it on the wrong speed once and turned it on with the pizza dough. The dough flipped up out of the big bowl, caught him under the knee and flipped him over. And then it was whipping over his head as he's laying on the floor. It's one of the funniest things I ever saw.
Oh, okay. It sounds kind of hilarious and scary at the same time. And smack the dough.
Well, I've got now up the Serious Eats Detroit pizza recipe, Detroit style pan pizza recipe. So we'll see. Maybe I'll try that. I'm gonna make some pizza today and tomorrow, because most of the dough recipes require a day ahead of time, which is not great because you have to pre-plan what you're gonna eat, and I don't do that. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'm ready to proof them overnight in the freezers.
Yeah.
Well, you'll have to make a pizza when I come up there soon.
Yes.
Shooting for early January.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll give him some time. Apparently he's having trouble, so you don't want to go now. Wait till he's figured it out.
But don't worry.
Early January. You got like 3 weeks to practice. Yes. Just make a pizza every day.
Oh, every day.
Make a delicious pizza, and I'll come eat it.
Well, if you come up with a good keto pizza dough recipe, let me know.
I think that's called
it's just a giant piece of pepperoni with some ham on top and some cheese.
Yeah.
That would be an interesting one. How is, I know we're on the topic of food now, but how is that keto diet stuff working for you, Greg?
I'm not strictly keto anymore. So not really. I try to limit my carbs, but I'm definitely not strict keto. In fact, one of our favorite things is a French bakery, and our favorite things is to go there a couple of times a week and get some really good bread. And if I'm having bacon and eggs or something, I need some toast with it.
So it's somewhat ketoed, huh?
I miss bread.
But it's just like mostly protein. Are you finding that it's helpful though?
Yeah,
just cutting out most of the
what
carbs.
I have eliminated is all the processed stuff, and most of the sugar and things like that. But I am having, more bread and stuff than I used to have.
Oh, okay.
And so far, knock on wood, no gout flare-ups and no other issues. And I'm doing some fitness with my wife now. We do a boxing class. It's called Rock Box. So it's a lot of bag work, punching and kicking and elbow strikes and stuff like that. So if my gout flared up, that would be impossible. So hopefully things will continue this path.
I mean, people talk about what they do if they had 3 wishes. So we talk about, world peace. Honestly, I just want to be able to eat lots of bread and not have carb related issues. I would solve the world's issue where everyone gets to enjoy really nice bread. And
I wish I thought that, like, vegetables tasted like candy, or like like that. That's the big issue.
Yeah, don't tell me. I have a disease that's called insulin resistance. I don't know if it's translated correctly.
I know I have the same thing. Yeah.
So yeah, I can eat less calories than my kids most of the days. Yeah.
Well, insulin resistance is at the root of pretty much every disease that we have. I mean.
Yeah. So
how does that work? I don't have this yet, luckily. So how does this work, and what is it?
Basically, if you spike your insulin a lot, spike it fairly often by eating a ton of carbs, you develop insulin resistance, which then lead to all other things, diabetes, different cancers, a lot of inflammation and stuff is related to insulin resistance. So,
yeah, mostly it But it can be also genetical. My entire family has it, so it's from my father's side. Yeah, but mostly my doctor called it a disease that's best for bad times. So this disease makes when you eat, especially when you eat sugars and similar things, your organism is eating more from them than normal organism. So you're taking more fat, more everything from very small amount of food. So if there is lack of food, then it's great disease to have.
You're good to go.
It's great
Survive.
disease to have because you will survive. But today's when there's a lot of sugar added to everything we eat, that's very bad. Yeah. So mostly I train martial arts 3-4 times a week. Yeah. Mostly on days I train, I should be normal sportsman or someone that trains as much as me should eat about between 3,000 to 4,000 calories. I was quite nicely checked. I can eat about 1,600 to 1,800 calories. So 2 times less than normal person that would train. Yeah, so that's not fun.
Yeah, so
No, it sounds slightly difficult, but it save you a lot of time eating less.
Made up by all your potato chips.
The general thing is, because again, I'm in the same boat, is it's your pancreas which deals with generating insulin, and effectively we use sugar for fuel. That's like most of how we have energy is sugar. Your brain uses electrolytes for processing and stuff too, but fundamentally most of the stuff our body uses is sugar, and carbs are very high in sugar. So the TLDR is more and more food has sugars in it, and that's usually fine, but it's getting to the point where it's a lot more than we want. But even worse, here's the real killer, the bit that like why it's happening more so than it used to. Almost every organ in your body can use fuel from sugar, but there's certain kinds of sugars, and only certain sugars can be processed by certain organs, right? And so you end up with fructose in particular is fruit-based sugars. So the kinds of sugars you'd get from apples and oranges and that kind of thing. So yeah, people don't think about it. There's a lot of sugar in fruit. And so natural fruits especially are going to absolutely kick your ass if you've got insulin resistance, because you're just drinking raw, effectively sugars. And what people don't realize is the benefit of eating an apple versus drinking it is the fact that if you eat it, all of that extra starchy stuff will slow down the processing in your body. And so that's why they talk about insulin spikes, because it hits you really, really quickly. But the real problem is fructose can only be processed by your liver, right? And that doesn't sound like a big deal, but think of it as normally you'd have a rough bias of lots of different sugars in your body. Your whole body would process it and you'd be fine. But fructose is the cheapest sugar to produce. So companies are replacing the sugars they would normally put in their foods with fructose, which means
in high fructose corn syrup, highly concentrated cocaine,
exactly.
basically.
So what happens is the food you're eating is now there's like a backup log of your liver going, okay, I am the one organ that has to process all of the sugars your body's been intaking, and when it doesn't have somewhere to go, it stores it, and when it stores it, the example is like if you have a meat cellar with lots of stuff in the background versus like a local small fridge, and so what it does is it stores it locally, which means it stores it around the liver, and that's how you get fatty liver disease. You're literally storing that extra stuff around the liver, and then that leads to all the other stuff. High blood pressure, you've got extra issues, whatever. So the short is, all of it is downstream from predominantly mostly sugars, which is from mostly breads and things, because that's where people
and sodas.
Yeah. So
soda's worse.
And so you end up with this like giant cascading of stuff that all boils down to the fact that it's very cheap and easy to get this kind of stuff these days. And so it can be a real kick in the ass. And that's why I've also done intermittent keto stuff too. I do OMAD diets, I do that kind of stuff. And just being aware of it's quite useful, because I have a glucose monitor that I can wear from time to time, and I will check the numbers. And it's kind of fascinating how you can eat like a lot of food. It's not about quantity of food. You eat a lot of food, but if it's the right kind of food, it spikes a little bit. You eat other kinds of food, you just have like 2 slices of bread, and it'll go up 3 times higher and last for like 4 hours longer. And it's like, oh, that's very surprising. It's entirely down to what's actually in it.
Yeah. If you want something fun, on top of that, I also have gastroesophageal reflux disease.
That's easy for you to say.
It's reflux. So some
That's
part
true.
of stomach you eat from your stomach gets back to your
stomach acid backs up. Yeah.
But as I have it quite heavy.
I have that one. Woo! Finally, something I got.
Swallow all of a sudden?
What's interesting, I developed it because I was on a diet against the previous disease, yeah. And what's fun, the both diets are totally different, and they don't work together. So if you're on a diet against the insulin resistance, you can't be on diet against reflux. So I think I developed my diet 3 years of work, checking which thing doesn't interact with each second disease. So it was quite fun and quite a big journey to develop everything.
And again, same kind of fun things is if you are, there's something called the BRAC diet, which is specifically high fibrous. It's good for digestion. So if you have those kinds of issues, if you have sort of acid reflux, which is basically, an empty stomach, it's causing basically splashing back up and structure from the stomach acid affecting your esophagus, and it burns and it hurts and it gets a lot of not nice stuff. But that is high in, like, again, bananas and things for high potassium. And so again, exactly that. It's counter to the advice that you should do for the low sugar stuff. So a lot of this stuff is a balancing act, and it gets very frustrating having to understand how much you need for. That's why one of the things about keto, which is, people argue about the benefits, but there's something you can get into a phase called fat adaptation. And then there's the way keto works in particular is you can effectively train your body into not using sugars for fuel, because your body can use other sources. And the general takeaway is people talk about sugar as like it's a very dramatic fuel, right? It's like a nitrous injection. Your body gets, that's why people have highs and lows. If you strip sugar from it's your body's favorite fuel, but if you get rid of it, your body's like, well, I still need fuel, and it'll start using your stores effectively of fat. But what people don't realize, it's not just about like, oh, it's using fat. It will fundamentally change what it looks for fuel. And for lack of a better word, fat is like a cleaner burning fuel. It's literally like it's not coming from external sources. It's not high peaks and troughs. So if you go on a like high protein diet, effectively, your body, you'll actually have a lot less low energy moments during the day, and a lot less sort of high peaks as well. You'll kind of even out a bit. And there's a lot of other benefits to that too. But again, that cuts out how much, like if you go on a high protein diet and like try to leave out carbs, you're cutting out everything with sugar in it, and that's everything with bread in it, everything with it's so horrible.
It's tough to maintain.
Yeah.
And it is totally a balancing act, and it has so much to do with your gut biome and the ratio of the different bacterias and stuff, and that can cause a whole host of problems, like oxalates building up in the kidneys and causing kidney stones or other inflammation and stuff. And it's all related.
I don't like kidney stones. Those
This has turned into a really pleasant conversation.
I just said I wanted to make pizza. That's all I said. I was looking for dough recipes. Now I don't want. Now I need to just eat chicken, bland.
So no more pizza, Andrew.
Yep, I'm gonna eat chicken breast for the rest of the month. And you'll see I'll be very, very slender the next time you see me from my chicken.
I think Greg called out the best.
No, go ahead. If we're going to give one just general, for people who start going down the rabbit hole, just a little tip. Don't take the 50s advice of fruit is healthy for you. Like it can be under the right circumstances.
Especially not fruit juice.
Yeah. And that's the real takeaway. Because a lot of people, idiots like myself, were just like, oh, fruit's the good thing. That's what people take it. So when I was younger,
go drink some apple juice.
You replace all of your bad fizzy drinks with nice healthy juices, and it's like, no, then you're actually having more sugar than you thought you would by doing that. So yeah.
Oh, I know. It blows me away how many people think that juice is healthy and give it to their kids and stuff as the primary drink. And when I realized
you can drink like 6 times more as well, right? That's the worst part. It's like
it's not fizzy.
Yeah.
It doesn't fill you up.
I used to go to like continental breakfast, and they'll give you that little tiny glass of orange juice. I'll be like, what is this? A glass for ants? Like if I'm going to drink orange juice, I want like a nice big glass of it. And now you realize how bad it is.
Yeah, I've got friends with kids who aren't allowed to have Coke, but they drink juice all day long. I'm like, it's the same thing.
Yeah. Just as bad. Yeah. My kids get super excited when they get to drink any kind of soda, and even then it's diet and 0 calories, so it's not full of sugar. Because it's just it's too overwhelming.
That's
and
another thing,
I think
though, is the diet drinks. Anything with the artificial sweeteners, it tricks your brain. Your brain thinks, "Oh, he's having sugar," and it will spike your insulin.
Also, as an old person who used to work serving tables a lot, the people who drink Diet Coke get way more refills than people who drink any other soda, and it's literally an addiction. So for all you
I used to drink 6 to 8 Diet Cokes a day at work.
Yeah,
because they were 10 cents in the drink machine at work.
Yeah.
Well, that's definitely a bad idea. But if you are going to drink them, having less calories is generally good. It's just, when you called out soda earlier, it reminded me of like how quickly I lost weight just by switching off of drinking calories. Like I lost 40 pounds in like 3 months just by not drinking shitloads of calories from sodas and energy drinks, and realizing like if you actually look at it, you're like, oh wait, that whole soda is like half of my daily calories. Like if I actually drink this thing.
For me, it was bread was the one that I realized. Like it was one of those things where it's like bread is so light, it's so airy, it's easy to eat. Grab a couple of slices of bread here and there, and again, it doesn't feel bad in the same way like big, greasy food would. But like, once I had a look at it,
good too. Like bread is always, at least in the U.S., the bread is like the biggest part of the food pyramid.
Yeah,
we're totally lied to.
Then there's fun facts too. Here's another just random thing. Did you know there was a court case a while back where Subway couldn't legally classify their bread as bread because it had too much high sugar content?
That was in Ireland, right? In Ireland and UK or something?
Yeah.
Not here though. They could still have bread here.
That's hilarious. It explains why Subway always has really good bread, though. It tastes so damn good.
It's crazy how much stuff has sugar in it that you don't even realize has sugar in it. Like sweet peas, can of sweet peas at the supermarket has sugar in it. I'm like, wait, is it sweet because you add sugar, or is it because these peas are naturally sweet? But somehow the no salt one doesn't have sugar added. So I don't know what the deal is, but there's sugar in it.
Watch out for the fat-free.
Do you know that ham slices that you mostly put on your bread has sugar in it because they're adding sugar to ham? If you're buying ham packed for the bread, checked if it has sugar in it, because mostly it has.
Yeah. I like to look at the ingredients before I buy stuff because, like Lem pointed out, peanut butter has extra oil and sugar. Not all peanut butter does. So, but if you start looking at the ingredients, you'll be like, oh shit, this is all full of. It's not the words I don't understand. It's the sugar. When I just see sugar, I'm like, oh, I'm not going to buy this one now. My ketchup doesn't need sugar. There's ketchup that doesn't have sugar added. So. Buy that. And
then there's other stuff too. Like when people talk about different kinds of bread, if you do any research into this, people will broadly tell you favor wholemeal breads in particular. And a lot of people are like, oh, because they must be healthier. Well, not really, actually. Like they are, but not for the reasons you think they are. They're not healthier because the bread is inherently healthier. They're healthier because they're harder to digest. Legitimately, your body has a harder time chewing through something that's a lot more grainy and bitty, and what that does is it means the sugar is slow release. So if anybody does have insulin resistance, they universally, when they have bread, they kind of have to have wholemeal bread because of that reason, right? Because it means that you're not going to get that sudden spike when you eat it.
One thing I heard, and I don't know if it's true, but I've heard that the reason so many people have like gluten intolerance now or celiacs is because we have like fast rising yeast, and we don't go through the normal fermenting process for letting the bread rise and stuff like we used to, that somehow that's led to kind of processing out the stuff that would be more helpful in digestion, which led to a lot of these. And I think that's probably also led to a lot of the allergies and stuff that we're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've kind of proven that was the cause of the peanut one. So it wouldn't surprise me if it was something similar with grain and wheats in food, especially to determine based on what the parents are feeding too, because people tend to be pretty monolithic in the types of food that they feed their kids. So
yeah, fermentation is a good thing.
So
I will say, like, again, like a lot of people, you probably as frustrating as it is, like a lot of people don't actually need to worry too much because your body is pretty good at regulating insulin. It's only that if you have a diet where you're consuming more than you realize, then you can become insulin resistant. Like that's something that can happen. It can be genetic, but it can also be done. You can do that to yourself, and then once it's done, you can't really undo that. Now you can limit the effects, and there's like things you can do, but it's just one of those things that's worth knowing about because, like, yeah, it can be a real kick in the ass, and so. Yeah, I don't know. I just find the whole topic generally interesting. So yeah, as you can imagine, I've done a bit of research into it myself.
Yeah, this was the image that Powell shared too. I think for people who don't realize what they're doing, it's a pretty good indicator, especially when you start to like compare it with like a candy bar and like how much sugar is in a soda versus a candy bar. It's like pure sugar. You don't even get the peanuts in the soda.
Yeah, that's why I like to always mix my Coke with ice and whiskey to cut down on that content.
Liquor is another one, though.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that drinking beer gave me that acid reflux.
I had to switch mostly to whiskey, so when I drink now, it's almost entirely spirits. Not that spirits are good for you, but like on balance, they're only bad for you in one way, not bad for you in also the other ways as well from a sugar perspective.
Oh man. The problem with drinking the spirits is then I want to eat the food. So my biggest trick these days is not buying chips. If I don't go to the store, I don't buy chips. So I don't go to the store anymore. Instead, I'm slowly running out of food. And eventually I'll go.
What I've done is get the small individual bags of chips. So that way I know exactly how many calories I'm eating. And then when I go to grab a second bag, I feel really guilty. And I'll usually avoid it. And I'm like, okay, just this one. It's pre-served, 150 calories. I know exactly what I'm eating. And I can stop right there. If I have a bag, either put them into a bowl or get sick because I ate the whole thing.
Put in the bowl and put the bowl in the other room. So every time you want a chip, you have to walk to the other room.
Yeah.
Switch to pork rinds.
I just found like I just love information and the data from it. So what I did is it's again overkill for most people, but I got a whole pile of the continuous glucose monitors. And so the way you traditionally check your blood sugar is you literally get a bit of blood by pricking your finger and you test it and whatever. But if you're doing it regularly, you can get a little thing that you like stamp into your arm, it injects it into you, and then you can just scan it whenever you want, and you can then get the constant value. And so what I would do is I would do that for 2 weeks. And I would just do a whole load of experiments. I would fast for a while and I would eat something and I would monitor the values going up and down and just get like a good sense of like literally most people probably eat the same 25 things roughly in their life for the most part. And so I have now a good sense of what each thing does to what degree and how it affects stuff. And it's just very fascinating. I don't, not everyone has to do that, but I do recommend having a look. It'll teach you a surprising amount.
Nice. What was this one we got up here, Greg?
The Bomber Peak. Programming efficiency improves as the alcohol content hits that peak.
Yeah, so right up to the
one of my highest ever voted things on Reddit is about 8 years ago. I posted that top image with a picture of Calvin and Hobbes, like using a sled off the top of the peak down. So I was like, that was very relatable.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one. Cool. Well, you guys got any other health topics you wanted to mention, or should we start wrapping things up?
I need to go have a snack.
Yeah, all this food talking is making me crave bread right now.
Well, here's one if we're talking random. We're talking random health topics. Here's one last one as a tip for people. You ever watch the movie Idiocracy, and they make the joke about plants love electrolytes and the power of electrolytes? And anybody who's ever done
if you haven't seen it, you should go watch it after the show.
Yeah, it's
Idiocracy, like
good.
2006, one of the best movies ever.
And the other place you would have heard electrolytes a lot is the classic like energy drink stuff, which also tend to have a good bit of sugar in it too. But without going down that road, the fun fact, like the reason why you need electrolytes, the whole reason that process happens is if you do exercise, you sweat, and when you sweat, you leach salt from your skin, and that's why it tastes salty. You're getting rid of that sodium. And sodium is what basically keeps your brain functioning. And so if you're feeling weak or have a headache, it's usually because of low water or low hydration or low sodium. And those two things go hand in hand because they seep out together. So small tip, for all the other complaints, people talk about everyone knows sugar's bad, and everyone used to say salt is bad. Actually, salt's pretty good. Not in huge doses, but it's not the degree that people think it is. So salt's actually more kind of valuable than people realize. And if you're the kind of person, like if you're doing exercise and stuff, don't buy an energy drink. Literally get like a small salt tablet and a bottle of water. Does exactly the same thing. You don't need to go and buy an energy drink. There you go.
Yeah.
Last health tip.
Yeah, and when you start doing keto, you do lose a lot of salt, and so they recommend you supplement it with some potassium citrate or something, some kind of salt.
All right. Well, at least everybody in chat agrees that Brondo is good, and President Comanche should be. I love that movie. I feel like I got to go watch it again now.
Yeah,
It's so good.
Listen.
You guys want to take one technical question before we go? Or not really technical, but just general advice. They're full stack web dev. They want to get into game dev, and they're considering their only experience as business software. Do you have any advice for them getting into the industry? I mean, now is a terrible time because everybody keeps having layoffs, but it's certainly not an impossible thing. If you already have a bunch of business experience and doing internal like enterprise type apps, the easiest path is probably just straight through like the tools department. If it's a big enough company that builds internal tools for their team, building tools, there's an easy one that you're already going to have the skills. You can go in and be productive and then start making that transition while you're there. You just talk to the other game developers, tell them what you're interested in, that you're trying to get into it and learn it. And they'll, at most places, they're generally programmers talk to each other and get along and will help each other and would help with that, especially if you're doing tool stuff, because they tend to love tool stuffs. And I actually saw a comment a couple of days ago from somebody who got into the industry on one of the YouTube videos through tool stuff, just off of that advice, and was really, really loving the job. I think it's a great way to go if that's your experience already. But do you guys have any other advice?
I think it depends on what type of software you worked on. Yeah, because for example, if you use databases and you have a good knowledge how to program a database and connect to it, you can go to a company that works a lot with I don't know, live services and stuff that you have to share lots
MMOs
of
and the online game.
Exactly. Yeah. And you have to even mobile games that have lots and lots of small freemium apps that have lots and lots of small payments that you have to store in database, analyze, and stuff like that. It's big things that you have to work, and it's mostly the same software work as business work when you analyze data. Yeah, so it depends on what you worked before.
Yeah, my I guess hot take would be, if you want to work in games, don't aim for AAA. We're just at that point now where I think it's kind of crazy to try to do that, in terms of all the layoffs, in terms of all of that entire industry is in a very precarious place in general. If you want to make games, just make games. And if you want to do that, then the answer is download a game engine, go type game engine tutorial into Unity or into YouTube and like pick something for Unity or for Godot or something and just get started. And then to your point about like what with the years of experience, I would recommend people just pick something that's relevant to what they've done in the past, kind of like Paul was saying. It's like some of the first game examples I did was using web APIs to do fun stuff, like generating things from the web or using, just anything that you can leverage as much of that knowledge and then sort of ease into what you're doing. So yeah, just basically, I think people constantly look at getting into games as being AAA, but the truth is indies are massively on the rise in terms of, like, money is still a problem. Like, that's just going to be a fact. But in terms of job satisfaction, the community that's building around it, and people's desire for types of games, you're not likely to find guaranteed success in either field, but you're probably actually much more likely to find success AAA than you will, being a cog in a giant, or it being an indie rather than being a cog in a AAA system where it's harder to climb up the ranks and whatever,
Yeah, you might. I also feel like, though, with that past experience, there will probably be more opportunities in AAA because they tend to have bigger teams that are building more internal stuff.
They do
like if you just want to take that experience directly over. Like, I think of like all of the customer service tools, all of the QA department tools, all of the test automation stuff, and those tend to be big, like not super big, but very important teams that don't usually get cut because
They are, but my
it's like
hot take,
they're usually causing the cuts of other teams.
sure, but
Like,
here's my hot take to you. If you're working in enterprise and have been doing for whatever 8-10 years working on networking software and building front ends, and you go into one of those teams, they're going to look at your experience with all of that stuff and then put you on tool development. They're going to put you on the stuff that you've got space for. And from a job satisfaction perspective, if you switch jobs from working in enterprise to working in games and you're still doing the same bloody job roughly, where you're just mostly tangential to the game stuff, that to me wouldn't feel particularly satisfying, right? Like, it would be the point of going into games is you want to be contributing to the game portion of the game, I imagine. And if that's the case, I think you're more likely to get that satisfaction you're looking for by going indie than you would sort of effectively doing the same thing, but, you know, related to the game.
it could. I just see that transition there as an easy one, going from tools into the gameplay side of stuff. If you find that interesting, like, because largely because you're going to have the number one thing that matters, which is the fucking connections. You're going to know the person who's hiring because they're probably also the lead for you, and you're probably reporting to the same person who would switch you over to doing game development stuff, or, you know, like the gameplay programming stuff. And I also feel like while it's not obviously the same, like building games and building tools for games, not the same, it's still, I feel like building game tools, assuming that you're getting paid the same and everything is equal, is still a lot more fun than building enterprise tools. And the people that get those tools appreciate them a lot more. Game designers and game developers, like, oh, this is awesome, this helps a lot. The guy on the assembly floor is just going to tell you when you fucked something up. You're never going to get positive feedback about, you know, the internal. At least I've never seen it, like internal corporate.
I guess that's
like,
true, but I will say, on a personal level, if I was given the option of working as a tool developer in a large AAA or working for an enterprise company, I would take enterprise company these days every time, because I feel like there's more money in it, more likely, there's more job security. It's very similar in work, and realistically, when you get to that stage, you're down to the stoic argument of, can you find joy in your work? And realistically, if you care about that kind of stuff, you can probably find ways to get that engagement with people, because it's still people using your tools. And so I would say, just at a personal level, I would say if I work in game stuff, I want to be working on game stuff. And if I work in tooling and things, I would rather do it in a way where if I've given up on the game stuff, I'd like to do it in a way that's both financially viable and also, you know, more job security and all of the stuff. So just again, it's purely a personal thing.
No, I think that makes sense.
You
know. I also have a bias, though, I think, because all of the tool stuff I did was on games that I really liked and was really excited about. So, you know, doing the tools and doing the game stuff on there was about the same. I felt like about the same level of gratification. Like, you're just pleasing slightly different people, the players or the designers.
Yeah, I used to feel.
No, I totally understand your view, though.
Because I was the same originally. It felt thankless, and I think I've told the story a million times. I used to feel like working on my code was thankless in enterprise, but when I went and actually met the people using the software, and I suddenly realized, oh wait, this isn't the soulless just create stuff. Like, people actually use this every day. I didn't need to have like direct feedback from people telling me something's better. I just saw myself as a consumer for a change and actually went, is this better to use if I was doing this for my day job? And I was able to find that satisfaction from doing the job and making software that I know would be good to use, you know. Again, just we're getting into like more of the philosophy of that stuff at that stage.
Yeah. And then just a follow-up, what about non-technical roles? They said that, for instance, I work in the admin layer for non-game tech-oriented company. Do you think this applies to that too? And there are definitely like non-technical roles there. A lot of them on the design and development side tend to be very like game player, game designer heavy, but not all of them. There's definitely, I've worked with plenty of people in AAA who like just don't even play video games. So they just do their tertiary job.
I'd 180 entirely on that one. I would say if you're doing admin stuff, you can do admin stuff for games and it's 10 times more fun. It's not always fun because quite frankly, game devs in general are a bit more flighty and they tend to like panic and everyone's running around hair on fire in ways that won't happen in enterprise. So things are a lot more anxiety inducing at times, but it's a lot more fun. So yeah, I would, if I had to pick between those roles, being a project manager, I would prefer a project manager on a game than I would a project manager for enterprise stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of other stuff. Yeah, there's tons of roles. And again, same as what you said, I've worked with project managers who didn't really play games because that's not the point, right? To them, it's like, it's making a good product or a good project. It's fine, you know?
Yeah. Cool. Well, anybody got any last words, pal? You got something?
Last quick topic. Have you guys used Unity 2023.2? Or you
Yeah.
didn't try
Yes.
the newest version? Did you have any problems? Any major bugs?
Other than it constantly crashing.
Yeah, other than that. That's
I've had problems with it crashing a lot and domain reload issues constantly especially with multiplayer play
You said
mode.
23.2, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, because the only 23 I have is 3.alpha 14. So yeah, I've not tried that. one.
And your has been mentioning before the Quaternions. Yeah, it seems like a buggy build. I don't know what's going on there. Hopefully,
yeah,
the next
I
one
heard
is
the
better.
same. I just wanted to tell everyone not to use this version until they fix it, especially if you're making anything using Unity Terrain. Yeah, because Unity Terrain in this version doesn't allow any LODs. Because if you use LODs with Terrain and you try to make lights, it just gives you error.
Oh,
Yes,
nice.
So
Yeah, and 23.3 isn't any better yet either. Like, at least in my experience, it broke things even worse because like I couldn't use multiplayer services at all. It just constantly disconnect, and especially with multiplayer play mode. Hopefully, it all gets cleared up for Unity 6. I assume it will. It'll get all the shit knocked out.
So,
but
because
it's pain right now.
like now in this version, you can't use any of our assets. Yeah, so that's, and I would say most of the publishers that create nature assets are on the same page.
Yeah, they've definitely got to fix that. And Jim's asking if anybody's used the Muse stuff yet either, too. And I played with it just a little bit, but I also haven't gotten too much into it. Anybody played with it, Barry, and found anything useful in there yet?
I tested during Unite, and I would the texture generation and PBA material generation. It's fine for quick prototyping. Yeah, so for now, I think for something like that. But I would only use it to that. For programming or asking questions, I prefer other like ChatGPT or the Rider just released their own AI this week. Yeah. The
JetBrains one.
Yeah, the JetBrains one. It was released the full version this week, so it's a great tool.
Yeah, that was kind of my experience too. The texture thing was kind of cool. I did like to use it to make icons and sprites. Probably not ones that I would put into like a permanent release game, but they're great for like I need a specific button icon or something. The one thing that I did like in it though that was kind of cool was, and I made a little video about it with that behavior tree setup, that they did that automatic GPT like generation of the behavior trees. I thought that was kind of interesting and an interesting path to go. I don't know, how well it'll work for building up like an actual complex thing.
After the Google demo, I'm just a little bit more suspicious of demo examples I see coming out of companies anytime soon.
Well, that demo you can actually download. You can download and try the Unity one. It's available as a project on the asset store. So you just grab it and try it out. And it does generate stuff, and it seems like it works. But I didn't try it out very much with anything complicated because I haven't had a chance to get into it. If you haven't checked that out, by the way, it's worth it's like 2 videos old on the channel. Go check it out. They built a new behavior tree setup in Unity that's like built in, or I think it's a package as part of it, and then it does ChatGPT generated behavior trees. So you can have it create all the nodes for you. You can do it manually yourself, which is probably the way that most people do it. But they also added in the feature to have GPT just create them for you, and it seems pretty cool. The behavior tree setup itself, it seems really cool. The Muse part is just kind of like a neat extra cool part, but the behavior tree itself, I thought was the interesting thing. Anyway, I feel like I can keep going on and on. So a couple last things. Don't forget to grab your free Death Knight on the asset store. Have you guys seen this publisher, by the way? It's one I hadn't seen before. You got like a ridiculous amount of like HD good characters. So there are all kinds of cool stuff. There's sci-fi stuff, fantasy things, and other things. I thought it was pretty cool. New publisher I hadn't seen, probably because the things are so expensive. They're like $80 a character, and I wonder if they have any bundles.
Yeah, I hadn't seen them until you sent the email out. Yeah,
it certainly looked interesting. Like I think they need a good bundle. If they don't have one, they need a good bundle of all the characters. And then that 23 for 23 is run. So that's still around for a couple more days. And of course, we got Nature Manufacture and Infinity PBR stuff, which Powell mentioned was going on sale. The Infinity PBR stuff, is that going on sale too? Do you know?
Probably some of it, not all of it.
Sweet.
Some of it.
Okay. Oh, well, hopefully we'll see what pops up in the New Year's sale. So make sure you're ready for that, and then go grab the free stuff. Other than that, do I have anything else to share? Anybody got anything else to share? Did I forget anything? Oh, students for the multiplayer course, we have a call in 7 hours. So if you're signed up for that, the next call is in 7 hours. If you're not, the link is right there. It says next lesson is Monday. Actually, that's true. Next lesson is Monday. And then the next call after today will be Tuesday. All right, everybody. Well, I think we'll wrap it up and see everybody next week.
All right.
As soon as I find the button.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.